My husband's family just wouldn't let go of my past. So one day I decided maybe it's time I reminded them of theirs. I'm 34 years old and have been married for just over 2 years. My husband comes from one of those old money families. You know, the kind that throws around words like legacy and pedigree, like they're talking about lunch plans. They're all about country clubs, elite schools, and summer houses by the lake. Me, I come from a completely different world. I was raised in a working-class area, where you learned how to patch up a flat tire and turn leftovers into tomorrow's dinner. When I was 15, I made a stupid mistake. I tried stealing something small from a convenience store, got caught, and ended up with a juvenile record. But I didn't let that one dumb choice define me. I worked hard, graduated high school with good grades, got a degree in computer science, climbed the ladder in tech, and even took the leap to start my own company. It wasn't easy, it took years, but eventually my business took off. Now I lead a team of smart people building tech that actually matters. You'd think all that would make up for one teenage slip, especially since I never tried to hide it. I told my husband about it before things even got serious, and he never had an issue with it. But his family, they turned it into their favorite joke. The first time it happened was at dinner. His dad made a toast and said something about locking up valuables, then laughed like it was all in fun. I laughed too, because I thought it was a one-time thing, but it kept happening. His mom started calling me the comeback kid, always with this little smile that said she didn't mean it as a compliment. I tried to be nice. I helped out where I could, referred his brother to a job, built a free website for his sister's candle business. But the jokes didn't stop at a neighborhood barbecue. His brother handed me a plastic fork and said, just in case anything goes missing. People laughed, and I saw how some of them looked at me like maybe there was truth behind the joke. Later, I asked my husband to say something. He said he didn't like the jokes, but didn't want to create conflict between me and his family. I really wanted to believe he was trying, but then I found out what happened at his bachelor party. His family talked about my juvenile record like it was a punchline, told stories about how he turned the wild girl into a proper wife, someone who should be thankful they even let her in. I wasn't there, but one of his friends told me what went down. I felt like I'd been slapped after that. I stopped expecting them to change. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just started paying attention. I did my own digging, not for revenge, but to protect myself. I checked public records, made a few calls, even asked a background researcher I once helped to return the favor. And what I found shocked me. His uncle had a sealed case for drunk driving and injuring a cyclist. His dad was involved in a tax investigation that somehow vanished before hitting the news. His cousin got expelled from college for academic cheating, but the family said she left to explore art. I didn't say a word. I put everything in a folder and kept it safe. My husband didn't know yet. I wasn't trying to start a fight, but if they kept dragging my name through the mud, I needed to be ready. Then came the baby shower for our first child. We hosted it at our place and tried to keep it sweet and simple. Both families were invited, and his parents showed up early, loaded with gifts. His dad raised his glass and joked again about juvenile hall. This time, though my parents were there, our friends too. And when everyone laughed, it hit differently. I'd had enough. And if you're still listening to this, maybe you're the kind of person who knows how hard it is to stay silent. Maybe you've been there too. Hit that like button if you know what it feels like to keep your head down while others take shots at your past. I see you, and you're not alone. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted them to stop using my past. Like it was a party trick that night, I walked through the house giving a tour to some guests when I saw his sister in my home office. She said she was just looking around, but later I found out she had posted a photo of the space with a caption that said, "From thief to CEO." Only in America. She didn't tag me, didn't use names, but everyone who knew us knew who she meant. When I showed my husband, he said I should calm down, reminded me that his mom had blood pressure issues and his dad wasn't sleeping well. I just looked at him and said, I'm not asking for permission anymore. This isn't family teasing. This is straight up humiliation. A few days later, we went to a brunch at his parents' place. We brought the baby, and everything seemed fine, until his mom made another joke about sticky fingers. I didn't laugh. I put my plate down and said, if we're going to talk about family history, let's include everything. I talked about his dad's tax issues, his uncle's hidden charges, his cousin's expulsion. I didn't raise my voice, I just laid it all out. Then I pulled out that folder and placed it on the table. I didn't even open it, but the labeled tab said, "Enough." His dad turned red. His mom threw down her napkin, and some guests just quietly got up and left. We picked up the baby and walked out without another word. No shouting, no drama, just peace. That night, my husband sat with me in the nursery while I rocked our baby, and for the first time, he didn't defend them, he agreed. We needed a break from all of it. We checked into a quiet hotel, packed a few bags, and just unplugged from the chaos. He wasn't upset about what I said. He was upset that it all happened in public. I told him I've been sitting through public embarrassment for years, and asked him what made that day any different. If you're still here, maybe you've stayed silent too. Maybe you've let people walk all over your past, thinking it's just easier that way, but it's not. You deserve to be seen for who you are now, not who you were back then. So if this story hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe, because we've got more real stories just like this coming your way. I didn't go public for drama. I did it because quiet talks always led to dead ends that afternoon. His dad called 3 times not to apologize, not to reflect, just to bark voicemails saying he should control me and clean up the mess before the family name got stained. He listened to one of them on low volume, shook his head like he was done, then blocked his father's number right there. That night, his mom sent a long message full of veiled guilt and fake concern paragraphs, making me out to be bitter. Unstable, attention, hungry. She said I embarrassed them in their own home, that I was toxic and spiteful. I replied with nothing more than a list of their own insults, screenshots of their comments, and reminders of how they turned my past into a joke. Then I blocked her too. Every number, every account. The next day, I got a notification. His brother had quietly unfollowed my business page. That was expected, but then came the post on his personal feed. It said some people dig their own graves and wonder why no one comes to the funeral. He didn't use names, but the timing spoke loud. I sent it straight to a lawyer I knew from a past deal. He reviewed everything and said legally I was fine. Every word I said at that brunch was backed by facts, court records, public info, timelines. Nothing illegal, but I didn't want things to spiral into an online circus. So I wrote to his brother a short, clear warning, saying if he posted anything defamatory again, I'd take action. I told him I already archived everything he ever shared about me. The post disappeared that evening, no response from him. After that, I started tracking everything. I opened a spreadsheet and logged every text, every call, every comment, with timestamps, screenshots, backed them up in 2 cloud drives. Not because I was planning a lawsuit, but just in case things got uglier than they already were back at the hotel. My husband and I finally had a real talk. No phones, no interruptions, no interference. I told him flat out he could stay in touch with whoever he wanted, his parents, his siblings, his cousins. But our child would not be part of that mess. Not unless that environment changed for good. He didn't argue. He agreed on the spot, said he'd pause all visits, screen the calls, and that trust had to be earned, not handed down like an heirloom. That same week, we booked a counseling session, not as damage control, but because we needed it badly. The therapist was calm, sharp, and honest. She asked tough questions, and it didn't take long to realize his silence. All those years had allowed so much to go on, not because he wanted it, but because he was scared. Ignoring the problem didn't fix it. It only fed it. I wasn't angry in that room. I just laid out what happened, the name, calling the online digs, the jokes, the baby shower, toast, the brunch. Everything. The therapist didn't rush us. She helped us build a plan. And part of it was something I suggested. If any family member wanted to rebuild trust, they'd need to meet 3 clear conditions. Acknowledge what they did, apologize sincerely, no excuses, and agree to firm boundaries. No casual dinners, no pretend forgiveness. Only real change. We stayed at that hotel for 4 nights. It wasn't a getaway, it was a pause. A quiet space without visits or texts. Just us thinking, sorting, breathing. When we left, it felt like we finally drew a real line, not out of hate, but out of survival. A few days later, a mutual friend passed along a message. It was from his cousin, one who had always been polite but never involved. He said he respected what I did at the brunch. Someone needed to speak up. He asked to meet somewhere quiet, somewhere neutral. We picked a park across town. He showed up with a folder, said he didn't want revenge, just wanted to talk. He told me he'd been adopted into the family young, and even though they gave him food and a roof, they never let him forget he was an outsider. He said he was told to keep secrets, stay quiet, defend the image, and pretend that being tolerated was enough. Then, he dropped something I didn't see coming. Years ago, he said the family paid hush money to cover up a harassment case involving my husband's dad. Back when he still ran a business, the victim was a junior employee. The cousin had seen the emails during a summer internship. He had even found internal memos marked confidential. He showed me partial docs, screenshots, said the payout was disguised as a private legal settlement. I didn't copy anything, but I noted the details and added them to my records. Before we parted ways, I thanked him and told him, if this ever went public, his name would stay out of it. He warned me to stay careful, said the family wasn't used to being challenged, especially not from within that week. My husband arranged to sit down with his sister. He hoped maybe something could be salvaged. I agreed, but only if we met in public. We chose a quiet cafe. She came in dressed like it was a business brunch, smiled, ordered something fancy, and started with small talk. I went straight to the point. She brushed off everything she had said in the past as jokes, couldn't recall ever defending me, claimed I misunderstood her tone. I paid for my coffee, stood up, and left without another word back home. I reminded my husband surface apologies didn't mean growth jokes, that cut people aren't harmless. And anyone who can't admit that has no place near our kid. He didn't argue. This time, he started individual therapy that same week, said he wanted to figure out how he let this slide for so long. I told him therapy wasn't blame, it was accountability. And if we were going to build a better home, it had to start with truth. If you're still with me right now, take a second and think about what kind of people you're surrounding yourself with. Sometimes the ones smiling at you the most are the ones keeping you small. If this story hits something inside, you don't just scroll by, drop a comment, or share this with someone who might need to hear it. You're not alone in this fight. Later that week, while picking up our son from daycare, a woman I didn't know walked up and introduced herself as a friend of my husband's mom. She crouched down, looked at the baby, and said, "Raising a little rebel." Huh. Then she walked off like it was nothing. I didn't wait. I went straight to the director and requested a total lock on our family. Info gave them a list of approved contacts and made it clear no one gets near my kid without my say. So the changes were made immediately. 2 days later, the cousin messaged. Again said he overheard a call between his mom and an uncle. They were planning a dinner, not to apologize, but to rewrite what happened. They wanted to spin the brunch as a meltdown, make me the villain. An invite came in through group email. I didn't ignore it. I hit reply all and said, I wasn't attending any fake gatherings meant to change the narrative. I said loud and clear, anyone still denying what happened could keep living in that fantasy, just not around me, my husband, or our child. Only one person replied, an uncle. He sent back a sarcastic message, called me dramatic, and accused me of tearing the family apart. I didn't reply. I saved it, filed it, and kept moving. 2 weeks later, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a note from my husband's aunt, written neatly in blue ink. She apologized for never speaking up, admitted she saw the comments, the jokes, the digs, but stayed quiet to keep the peace. She said everyone knew how I was being treated, but they let it happen because it was easier than standing up. I gave the letter to my husband without a word. He read it twice, said it mattered, but he wouldn't rebuild anything without accountability. We didn't reply. The letter wasn't a bridge, just a receipt for the truth. In the days that followed, my husband stopped taking his parents' calls. No big speeches, no dramatic posts, just silence. He ignored the invites, skipped the check-ins. It didn't go unnoticed. His father sent a long group message accusing him of betrayal, said he was brainwashed and letting outsiders tear the family apart. My husband read it, then handed me his phone. I blocked the number for him, with the noise shut off. I started focusing on something else, an idea that had been in my head since that plastic fork joke at the barbecue. A children's book, not about me, not exactly just a story about second chances and how mistakes don't define you. I started outlining it at night after the baby fell asleep one night. My husband got a message from an old friend. someone who used to laugh with the family at my expense during our wedding planning. She messaged to say she regretted it. Admitted she laughed along because it was easier, but said something else too. The family had been spreading rumors, not just about me, but my business, whispering that I faked documents to get funding or used someone else's credentials to start my work. I contacted a public relations expert the next day, someone experienced in crisis control. We sat down. I laid everything out. They got to work, tracked IP activity, matched social posts to a former employer of my husband's brother. Clumsy but obvious, we notarized the findings and stored them safely. The moment I knew the gossip had gone too far was at a routine checkup for our son. The nurse made a small comment, said it must feel nice to have turned my life around. It sounded like a compliment, but the tone had teeth, like she'd heard something twisted. I didn't yell. I corrected her, gave the real timeline, reminded her that sealed records aren't hallway talk. I got her name asked to speak to the clinic manager later that day at home. My husband said he wanted to try one last thing, not to fix the family, but to feel less alone. He scheduled a video call with all our grandparents just to talk, not to apologize, not to fight, just talk. The call happened Sunday evening. My husband didn't yell, didn't soften anything. He walked them through the truth, the years of digs, the jokes, the silence that followed every time someone crossed the line. He said what needed to change and why we stepped away. To our surprise, his grandfather leaned forward and said he was tired of pretending that image mattered more than honesty. He told a story. None of us knew how he once made a terrible financial decision that almost ruined everything, but nobody used it to define him. He said what the family had done to me wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. I stayed mostly silent, but in that moment, someone on his side finally stood up and said, "This is not okay." A few days later, my husband told me his cousin, the one who came forward, was moving out of state, got a new job, cut ties with everyone except us. Said he was tired of walking on eggshells, ready to be free, and around the same time, his sister reached out again. She sent a message asking if they could meet at, and he didn't come alone this time. He brought a friend along for support, and honestly, the conversation ended quicker than I expected. There was no dramatic yelling, no apology, no begging, just a quiet line, drawn a boundary set where none had ever existed before. And it was strange how final it felt. Not loud, just firm. And the next day, we felt the ripple. His mom sent this massive message full of guilt trips and veiled threats. She didn't say sorry or even acknowledge what actually happened. She just talked about family legacy, how we were ruining everything, and how my husband had changed. Like that was a crime. She didn't care about what we'd been through. She only cared that the control she used to have was slipping. And without even asking me, my husband just blocked her number for good. After that, we both sat down and made a choice. No more family events. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, and definitely not for our son's first birthday. We didn't want that day to be about dodging insults wrapped as jokes or fake smiles over tense dinners. We wanted peace, so we made our own plans. We kept it small, only the people who had stood by us, a few neighbors, some close friends. His aunt who wrote that letter, and his cousin who was about to move away. We set it all up in our backyard. Nothing fancy, just colorful decorations, a soft play area, a cake shaped like a storybook, and a lot of music and laughter. Our son crawled around in the grass, free and happy, and when everyone left and the mess was cleaned up, I sat down at my desk and started writing, not a letter to make peace, not a message, to open the door, just a document, something real, something I could send. If anyone tried reaching out again without owning the truth, I wrote it all out, the timeline. The things said, the pain caused the boundaries we now had. I didn't blame anyone. I didn't name names, but it was all there, black and white, honest and clear. And here's something I learned. Maybe someone out there needs to hear this too. If people can't face the truth, they don't deserve access to your peace. So if you've ever felt like you're the villain for setting boundaries, maybe it's because your silence served their comfort. Speak your truth. If that's all you can do today, it's enough. A week after our son's birthday, I finalized the letter, sent it to everyone in his family, not with emotion, not with anger, just with facts, a record of what happened, and 3 conditions for any future contact: truth, accountability, and boundaries. No more pretending. Within 2 days, the replies came pouring in. Not one of them included an apology. Instead, there was bitterness, accusations from cousins saying I was destroying the family, that I was making drama out of nothing. I didn't reply. I just blocked them and saved the messages for my records. Only one voice cut through the noise. His grandmother. She called and said, "Just one thing. You both did the right thing," then hung up. We had drawn our line, not from hate, but from finally seeing what life could feel like without all the noise. And once you know what peace feels like, you can't pretend the chaos ever made sense. 3 years passed. Just like that, our son turned 4. He's gentle, curious, completely untouched by all the darkness we fought to keep away. Last month, we got an envelope from an address we didn't recognize. It was an invite to his grandfather's 75th birthday, handwritten at the bottom. It said, "No strings attached, just family." My husband stared at it for a long time before asking me, "What do you think?" And I told him the truth. "I think we've been here before." So we talked about it, not with fear, just honesty. We talked about what it would mean to show up, what message it might send to our son, who's old enough now to notice everything. 2 days later, his cousin, the one who had moved away, called. He said he got the same invite and told us about how his parents had divorced last year, how his dad, one of the uncles, who was the worst to me, had a major health scare, and apparently it changed him. He wasn't asking us to forgive, just giving context. I asked if he was going, and he said, only if we did, and only if we all walked in together. We decided not to accept and not to decline. We sent a note saying we'd consider coming if my husband's father met us first in public, just to talk. And to our surprise, he agreed. We met at a neutral spot downtown, and he was already there, looking older, smaller, more tired than I remembered. He stood up and shook my hand before my husband's, which already told me something. "Thank you for coming," he said. And his voice, it wasn't strong anymore. It was soft, worn down. He didn't beg or cry. He just said he had regrets, said the word therapy, something I never thought he'd say, talked about how his own father was never questioned, how those patterns shaped him and cost him his son. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, "just a chance to know my grandson before it's too late." We laid down our terms. Short visit. Our son stays with us. One comment about the past and we're gone. He nodded and slid over a letter, addressed to everyone who had witnessed the brunch 3 years ago. It was an apology already mailed out. He said this won't fix it, but it's the truth. We went to the birthday that weekend. It wasn't perfect. Some people were cold, others were warm. His mom hugged him too long and gave me a weak handshake. His sister avoided us until our son wandered over to her, curious about her earrings as we were leaving. His grandfather, the one who had stood by us years ago, took my hand and said, "Sometimes a family needs to break before it can heal." I didn't correct him, didn't say this wasn't healing. Not really, because we weren't back. Not truly, we were just here for the moment, on our terms. On the way home, our son fell asleep in his car seat, clutching this wooden puzzle box his grandfather gave him, and my husband kept his eyes on the road, then asked, "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" I looked at him, then back at our boy, and said, "I don't know, but I do know we're doing it the right way for us. And sometimes that's all you can ask for." We didn't go back to the family completely. Instead, we set up a careful structure, small lunches and public brief visits that ended on time, holiday cards with posed photos, but no personal updates. It wasn't reconciliation, it was coexistence, and honestly, that was enough. My business kept growing. I finally published my children's book, this time with my real name, and the folder filled with every secret, every detail. It stayed locked away, not forgotten, just no longer needed. We built a new life around people who saw us and stayed. Anyway, friends who showed up, neighbors who cared, co-workers who respected space. And in the end, we didn't need to burn every bridge to move forward. We just needed to stop walking across the ones that never led anywhere worth going. And if this story moved you at all, if you've ever had to choose peace over people who called themselves family, leave a comment below, tell your story, or just type the word boundaries. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone.